Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's meeting of Clean and Green at 7 o'clock, so I think we will start promptly. I can ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction that on hearing the alarm you should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phones and turn any other electronic devices being used to silent. I'd like to remind everyone present this meeting is subject to an internet webcast and recording where proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, it is likely your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public area, seating area of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are for any reason not present for the whole debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. May I remind members to declare any interests when the relevant item is raised on the agenda. Ms White, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillors Gerard and Councillor McShane. Councillors Gorton and Councillor Gordon are substituting this evening.
In the absence of Councillor Gerard, who is at the Labour Party conference, is it agreed that Councillor Dominic Naylor acts as the Vice Chair for the duration of this meeting? Thank you very much, everyone. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations to be made at this stage? Right. Item 3 is minutes of the previous Clean and Green Committee, which was on the 14th of July. Are these minutes approved? Yep. And that takes us on to item 4, which is the Chair's update. Whizzing through the agenda. Quite a few items on this. I've no intention of adding to any of those at this stage. We're very happy to answer any questions. Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Chair. The first item that's on your report is the pilot waste collection service in Ingatestone. And can I express my thanks to you and to Marcus Houghton and Paul Ellis and all the other officers, both at Brentwood Borough Council and Essex County Council, for all the hard work they've put in to get the Ingatestone pilot for fortnightly residual waste collections in a wheelie bin off the ground. I really hope it achieves its aims of increasing recycling rates. But can I ask, through you, Chair, of Mr. Houghton, roughly how many inquiries have there been regarding the scheme from residents who are affected by it? I do have another question to come after that.
Good evening, members. I have I think about a handful. We haven't got a precise number, but certainly we've had, I think, from memory, I think 2 complaints, or two to three complaints possibly. Looking for Paul, I think that.
Just to add, we've had, of the inquiries, we've had 29 requests for additional food caddies. So that signals a positive step by a lot of residents.
Thank you. Do you have another question? I do, yes. Can officers assure me that all the wheelie bins and rolls of blue and white disposable sacks have been distributed to all households covered by the pilot scheme? Thank you.
Yes, that was completed last week.
Thank you.
Councillor Barber?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things, if I may. On the recycling waste trial, we reiterate, or you reiterate in the report, that the Council is not planning to improve or change waste collection from and recycling facilities to flats. It's been something that I think was raised across the chamber over the last 3 or 4 years between members, and really it seems that we don't offer any viable alternative to our residents who live in apartments with communal recycling facilities because they're so poor. There are some which become contaminated, and they are usually taken out after being in for 6 or 12 months. Could I just leave it with you and plant the seed that perhaps we ought to look again at that as an important issue? Because if we on this side, we're in favour very much of the carrot approach rather than the stick when it comes to recycling. And it does appear that there's not much carrot if you live in an apartment block that's council owned at the moment. That was the first thing, and you don't need to reply now, you can if you wish. And the other one was on the pigeons. So the pigeon motion was originally raised by myself and Thomas Hurd, who is no longer here on this in this council. But it was back in September 2023 that you were photographed on the front page of your newsletter for your political party, claiming that the pigeon problem was going to be solved by the hawks, and we are now 2 years later since that point in time, and we are still now progressing with Network Rail discussions, but there's no guarantee that this is going to be concluded. And my point is, it's the length of time now that this has gone on. It's leaving a huge task in terms of clean-up for the team at the depot, which, yes, when they do clean it up, it's remarkably improved, but that doesn't usually last for more than a day or two, and the feathers and the waste are back on the pavement again very quickly. So my question is, why should we read into this the fact that it's likely to be resolved, given that over the last 2 years we haven't been able to resolve it?
Do you want to pick up the point about flats, first of all? One point I would make on that one is that I have asked for reports to come to the next Clean and Green on collecting waste from flats, because from next April we are going to have to collect food waste separately from flats, so we do need to have a plan for that. And Mr. Ellis, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's fine. They are problematic. Some of the blocks are old and don't lend themselves to the number of containers that we need at the moment, but yes, certainly something we'll report back on.
So can I just come back to you?
Yeah.
So trying to be constructive, cross-party, is that something where you are, as committee chair, having a discussion with the chair of Housing, Health and Communities to try and get sufficient funding so that we can, if we need to, invest some capital resources to build the necessary containers to house the recycling facilities that are required? Because with the best will in the world, this committee can't get up the recycling rate in flats unless the Health and Housing Committee is actually putting its hand in its pocket to build a few new things to support that. And my question is that conversation ongoing?
The conversation is about to start. So I went to a meeting of the Essex Waste Partnership last Thursday when this issue of collecting food waste from flats separately was discussed in some detail, with several examples of what other local authorities have done. And it, on the basis of that I then asked that we have a report, and clearly that is going to have to involve the Housing Department. So literally from last Thursday, I have not got a detailed answer to your question, Councillor Barber, but I have initiated the process that I hope will give us that sort of answer, and that we'll have a report at the next committee that will give us some of that sort of detail. On the pigeons, so look, we go back, yes. My initial thought, having looked at what had been done elsewhere, Trafalgar Square, Romford Station, was that using a bird of prey could be a viable option, and that we were yeah, personally I was hopeful that would be. I accept the animal welfare issues around using a bird of prey, and that, so we've moved on from that. Look, we have been banging our heads against this brick wall called Network Rail for 2 years. Mr. Ellis and I have met them on site, extracted promises from them that they were going to do some extra works to install further gridding underneath the bridges, and that when they were going to do any extra works, that they were going to inform us that they were going to do those works. They've done no such thing. They started doing some work, we think, to repair some of the holes in the gridding that is there. They didn't tell us they were going to do it, and it did result in a lot of distress being caused to birds who were nesting within the gridding. And I don't know if any of the members walked past Shenfield Station in the week or so after that work was done, but there were feathers everywhere. You could see the birds had got very distressed. And that resulted in the British Transport Police being called and interviewing Network Rail. And at that stage, and this is a matter, I'll put this public record, Network Rail told British Transport Police that the gridding under the bridges was our responsibility. That's how difficult it is to make any progress on this. And it is as a consequence of that that the British Transport Police are now investigating what Network Rail have been up to under animal welfare legislation. Both Mr. Ellis and myself have been interviewed by British Transport Police, have given formal statements to them. It is in their hands. My hope is that the Network Rail are prosecuted, because frankly it's the only way we're going to get them to pull their fingers out and do what they should be doing, which is protecting the underside of that bridge properly. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, very briefly.
I discussed with the engineers who were working on the bridge a few weeks ago. They had said that that one team had cut open the wire fencing that had been put up by another team, and I think they'd all come from Network Rail. So one team was reversing the work of the previous team, and that's how crazy it is. I'm not criticising anything in terms of party politics, but we do need to really get someone at Network Rail who's senior enough to be able to influence this, because 2 years is a long time for all of us to have to put up with this as a council and residents.
Yeah, 100% agree. Okay, Councillor Aspinall.
Yes, that's our every intention of doing so.
Can I suggest that what would be sensible, Mr. Houghton, is if, because the tarmacking work I understand is meant to take place next week, that if for some reason, weather or whatever, it hasn't been done by the end of next week, that if you report to myself and Councillor Aspinall and we take a view on what we should do if we're running out of time. Does that make sense? Does that reassure you, Councillor Aspinall?
It's more outside than I want to show.
Well, I think if we draw a line and say that we'll have a cut-off at the end of next week, if we're not making the progress we expect, we'll stop and have a think about it. Councillor Slade, I understand you indicated to speak. although you're not a member of the committee. Which item is?
So, Chair, so we've got on agenda item 4, 2 items, please. The first item would be the pilot waste collection service. So currently our recycling is resident selected, with Brentwood Borough Council gaining a revenue over and above recycling credits. What's the position with the commingled, and do Brentwood Borough Council lose revenue? So that's my first question. Should I go on to country parks, or should we give the officers a chance to answer this one?
Well, perhaps you have an answer on this one if it's two completely different things. Mr. Ellis?
Yes, so we would attract a higher value per commodity if it's collected separately than if we deliver to a MRF a mixed bag of recycling, including glass, paper, plastics.
And your second question?
No, so Chair, so we do lose revenue using the commingled, is that correct?
Sorry, at present we collect paper and card together. We don't undertake commingled as such. We have separate waste ones, but
No, it's separate. It still remains separate, yes. Yeah.
And then it's to do with the Hutton Country Parks, with the bat willows. I just thought I could add some context to this item. So the 108, that was part of the year 1 planting. The excess of 136 actually isn't correct, because that was actually a second tranche of planting for the year 2, when further land was released from battery storage construction. And also I would just like to add some context as to regards to the trees that have died. So the Forestry Commission acknowledged in our country parks, we have a high degree of dog walking. Therefore, very unusual for us to have a deer problem. However, the cessation of the weeding after year 1, which was as a result of the stop order in April 24, allowed for extensive grass growth, resulting in reduced footfall, along actually with the giant hogweed at sort of one of the entrances. This allowed the deer to prevail. Therefore, the cessation of weeding should be considered as a primary factor. My other point I'd like to make is that there was actually sacrificial trees of various species were planted into row to encourage the deer to browse on these rather than the bat willows. Therefore, after year 1, the death rate in bat willows was 10.2%. It's very disappointing to note that the increase in the death rate is now 24%, which can be partially accredited to the lack of weeding.
Mr. Aldridge or Mr. Holton, do you have a comment on that? We have got a tree management working group scheduled, so we can take some of the detail into that.
Just actually on the country parks, looking back at previous agendas, actually on the 11th of September 23, the Clean and Green Committee agreed to delegate authority to the Director of Environment to undertake consultation on the development of the Hutton Country Park Management Plan. I understand that a further report would be brought back to committee setting out progress on the development of the management plan and seeking approval of the vision statement. Has that happened?
a report hasn't come back to the committee, so no, is the answer.
Yeah, I think we'll take the detail of some of your things, Councillor Slade, into the tree management working groups. I think that sort of detail is much better chewed over, and I would hope very much you're going to be part of that. On the chair's update. Okay, so we'll then move on to item 5, which is the digital tree management system presentation. I'd like to hand over to Mr. Aldridge, who's going to take us through this. I hope everyone can see the screens. It's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So I'm going to give you a quick presentation and overview of the Council's tree management system. And we'll have an opportunity to ask any questions at the end. So digital tree management systems have been used for nearly 20 years. And EasyTree is a system which was probably came about at the start of that trend, but in 2009 they released their cloud-based version, which has been heavily developed since then. And the purpose of the tree management system is it enables the council to have oversight of its tree assets and risk management of those assets. Under the Occupiers Liability Act, the council has a duty of care to assess and manage risk in all of its public spaces, areas open to the public, and to prevent any foreseeable harm. Are we working? Are we back? Yeah. We're back. And the tree management system can also assist us in with any present insurance claims or also future insurance claims by allowing us to assess risk and preempting and managing that risk. So how does it work in practice? Has it gone again? We back? We're back. Cool. I can't see back, so if it goes, call me and I'll wait. So on the screen you can see a small image, but that's an image of the live view that a remote officer might have on their tablet or phone in the field. So the software is integrated and tracked on the field with GPS, and each survey that the officers undertake on site is automatically uploaded to the cloud, which is accessible within the back office. The app determines each tree location or tree asset and plots it against a grid reference automatically with what-free words. This allows the officers to take photos of the tree, inspect the condition of the tree, look at the site conditions overall, assess any hazards on site, and then undertake a risk assessment of that tree or tree group. There's a very small picture here. What this one is it allows us to undertake QTRA assessments or risk assessments of the tree whilst we're on site. So this is an example here. So this is looking at risk to vehicles. So, for example, a tree next to a road. This allows the officers to assess that road. So, for example, we're looking at a tree next to a busy road. We can see the speed of the road, how many cars pass per hour. And we can take that figure, look at the size of the tree and the harm that it could cause, and then look at the probability of that tree failing based on the conditions found of that tree. That calculates the risk assessment for us under the QTRA criteria, and that automatically presents a risk rating and a priority of work for those trees. Yeah, that's saying the same thing now. So here is just a quick example of, there we go. Here's a quick example of the back office mapping system, and this is showing an area which is the south side of Brentwood Golf Course. So each one of these little polygons you see, tree-shaped polygons, they're each an individual tree asset that has been plotted. And from the system, I'll carry on, wait for it to come back. From the system, we can interrogate each individual one of them off a map basis if we want to, and go into the fine details of each tree or tree group that's been inspected. There's 3 different colours on there. So the green trees are those that have been inspected with no recommendations or priority. Purple markers are trees that have been inspected that have a recommendation of works against them or a recommendation of re-inspection. And then finally the red ones would show overdue works. And the keen-eyed of you will notice there's one there, and I'll come back to that at the end of the presentation. And this here, so this is an example of the asset list, if you like, on the back office. So this shows a report from King George's Playing Field. So it's hard to make out, but just an example of what we get. Each tree has its own unique identifier. We have a list of species, a position on site of the tree, the overall site where the tree is, which wards those trees are in, when the tree was last inspected and at what time and by who, what type of inspection was undertaken, so that could be an ad hoc, a proactive, priority of works, if any, the risk associated with that tree, and then, most importantly, the date that the next inspection is due. And then here's another example. So this is the cricketback willows at Hutton Country Park. So you see we've mapped, all the trees are mapped. I couldn't fit the whole site on this picture to make it viewable. But you'll see there that each tree has been plotted. Those with purple on the back office has got a recommendation, and attached with the field officer's notes on there. So that allows us basically to flag any future works, flag any future maintenance. We can also upload any contractual agreements we have to that site, and it allows us to program planned maintenance work and have oversight of that with our contractors. So if I move on, so here is an example of an individual report of a tree. So each tree asset has a full auditable inspection record and works record. So anything that's happened to that tree or is going to happen to that tree is logged against that individual asset. Each tree is plotted against what 3 words and grid reference. So I'll just go through a little example here. We can see some information about the tree. It's gone, just as I've given the example, it's turned off on the screen. There we go. So we can see whether the trees in Wardley playing fields, Wardley wards, got our grid reference numbers and our what 3 words. We can go down, we can see it was inspected by one of our consultants on the 29th of the 7th. We've got details about the tree, the features of that tree, so that includes any hazards, any special features we might want to note. So if that, for instance, that tree, there's a footpath going underneath the tree, so it's worthy of noting. We then move into the condition of the tree, so that's where the officer will detail any findings under the condition. It could be good, it may have defects that we want to note. There's a space for a comment, so any comments on that tree can be made at any time. We can see here that the condition is overall fair, and the QTRA assessment has shown there's an insignificant risk of that tree. Then we can see any works recommendations on there. That gives us a priority in line with our tree policy, and then a recommended due date for the works to be completed. So this one is due July 2026. I think I've just spoken through everything, so I'll just skip through them. So once the works are completed, an officer will currently go back out, inspect those works, and then take a picture of the completed works and sign them off of the system. And just as a bonus, each tree, it does a calculation of the estimated carbon capture and value of that tree or tree group. So here's an example of a site report. So this here is showing, where is this showing? Bishop's Hall Park. So we can generally generate these reports, with as much or as little detail as we like, but we can generate those by site, by ward, by GPS location, and we can also show a full audit of all the works or inspections of each trees. This does assist us with insurance claims. And alongside the report, we have the scale maps that are generated. So these are very useful, especially when issuing works to contractors, because not only can we send them a list of works with the exact location of the tree and a map to back it up, but it also reduces the officer time, so we no longer would take contractors out on site and spend a week showing around every job to get a price. We can send that automatically to them and they know exactly the tree and the specification of works to work on. So a little bit of oversight for us. We track our performance indicators using the software too. So we've got a little bit of data here. So we can see 3,591 trees or tree groups have been surveyed since March this year. And the most common tree surveyed appears to be English oak, which is as a bit of an example of the trees that we have within the borough. That's what we've surveyed so far. So of those trees, we know that 1,200 of those are semi-mature oak trees, which means they're large trees, but they've not reached their full size yet. And just over 1,000 of those trees are mature trees, which are big trees which have reached their potential. Just a couple of other facts that we've got on here. So of those surveyed trees, 691 of those trees had works recommended. 329 of those works were low priority works, so to be completed within 12 months of our tree policy. 269 of those works were moderate works, so works to be completed within 6 months. And 93 of those trees inspected found urgent works, which were to be completed within 30 days. So here's another place where we track our performance indicators. So we've got two sets of PIs here. So the top one is the upcoming re-inspections. So those are generated off the back of the proactive inspections. The re-inspection would generally be 5 years unless there's a defect or something of significant note from that inspection. And this details here to the officers what re-inspections we have off the back of that initial survey coming up in the near future. And these inspections, once they've done the first one, they automatically sync with the tablet. So as the officers going round, they will see the list of works that they've got coming up, so we're ahead of schedule. And that's all updated live on the back office system. We've also got our work deadlines shown. So this is when the tree works are due. Currently, we are working on September, October and November's works. We like to try and plan ahead, and the contractors are out working on those at the moment. As you can see here, that we've got some works overdue from September, and I'll come back to that again in a moment, how we're going to address that moving forwards. So I'm talking through it and not actually clicking the button. So the next step. So the team will continue to complete a full audit of all the council-owned trees within parks and open spaces. And once that's been completed, that will initiate our full re-inspection programme. So we'll have a good understanding of all the trees, what we're managing within the borough, and we'll have programmed inspections ongoing to really look at those. The members have expressed that they would like more information about what tree works are happening within their wards. So we're currently working on a tailor-made report for ward members. I know we've been in discussion with a few of you. So I'm hoping that'll be ready very soon with a method of publishing them works in your wards well in advance of them actually taking place. So we're currently procuring what's called the works ordering system. So it's a separate module of EasyTree. And what that will allow us to do, this explains why some of the works are showing overdue more than a real figure. It's currently a very manual process. So once a contractor invoices for works, an officer then has to go out and inspect every single one of them jobs and mark them off the system of complete. So it ties up with the back office. That's very, very time consuming. You see, as we're working through September's works, the timescale's ticking over and it's saying they're out of date, but it just means we're yet to check them. So with the works ordering system, we'll be able to instantly send those works to contractors. And I think the best part about it will be when we undertook the tender for our tree contractors, and we've got a big schedule of rates of all their prices and quantities, when we send the work to one of the contractors, that will be pre-priced at our agreed quote back when we've done the tender. So we will know the cost and the time that should be completed. That will send that straight to the contractor's tablet, who have a read-only version of this device, of this system. Then they can go through their works, undertake the works, take a picture of it, mark it as done, and that will automatically update our system so the work's been completed. So it will be a fully live system from start to finish. Any questions?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Aldridge. Very, very comprehensive, and I think there are a lot of features in that members will welcome. And particularly, I think that the prospect of having good quality advance information for ward members about major tree works is going to be really helpful, because there's nothing more. One of those really annoying things, you know, someone gets onto you, the tree that called at the end of my road and the park by me has been chopped down, and and they expect us to know the answer. So, having that information in advance means that we will have the opportunity and the ability to share that with residents. Right, any questions from members?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Adam, Mr Hosson, for all you're doing on the trees around the borough. It's a huge challenge, we understand that. And thank you for meeting with us and the housing team and Councillor Slade and Councillor Patel and Pound to talk through the impact on the trees that were taken out of the housing land. I'm not going to focus on that. I want to go back to we had the oak tree, which was the huge mature oak tree off Whittington Mews, which failed. That oak tree, like a few around the borough, was used by youngsters whose parents had slung up some ropes to swing around on. So there are definitely, and we have one or two of those. I think we have another one in the Hutton Recreation Grounds where it's similarly used, and ropes, even if they're cut down by officers, are reattached quite quickly. My real issue is, you've said there that the revisit on a tree is going to be typically 5 years. Could I constructively suggest that if you are aware that a tree is being used by children as a recreational facility, whether it should be or not, that's the reality of it, because of the risk of particularly a mature tree collapsing on a child. The one that did collapse was regularly used as a swing by children. That's how it was described to me when I was told it had fallen down and collapsed. It really does seem that maybe they ought to be inspected perhaps annually. I would imagine that's a very small percentage of the overall trees in the borough, but I think it would do a lot of good to try and de-risk a potential South End situation occurring where a child is seriously injured. So if you could just maybe take that away and think about that, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Mr Aldridge, want to respond to that at this stage?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I agree. I think it reiterates the importance of having the proactive inspections so that we can be aware of these risks before they become a hazard. And again, yes, so if there was a tree and we'd pick that up on the inspection and we'd use the QTRA, but we'd also look at the conditions of the tree and what it's used for and its surroundings. So that doesn't necessarily mean all trees will be inspected by 5 years. That would be, that could be a tree in the middle of a park that's not got any hazards around it. The officer would make that judgment, and if they felt that a tree needed re-inspecting on a more regular basis, then of course that happens, and that's scheduled in.
I think Councillor Gordon was next.
Right, thank you, Chair. I always find most software packages, there's a lot of information there that's not used. You mentioned carbon capture. Looking at it the other way around, every planning application I've ever seen, there's normally trees being taken out. Can this software package actually be used to calculate the negative impact on the carbon capture of those trees being removed from planning applications? And the other thing is more from my education on TPOs. If this software and the inspection flags up an issue with a tree subject to a TPO, does it still have to go through planning, or can you use discretion to actually act if there's a danger? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I would say that the carbon capture part is a nice fluffy feature on the end of it. I wouldn't put any particular science against it, but it gives you an indication of that tree's potential to capture the carbon. But I would personally probably question the science around it and would not aim to use it within a report, but it's there as a nice to have. In regards to the TPO, so yes, the software can, there is a TPO module for the software. Our team does not manage TPOs at the moment, that sits with planning. But we'll be happy to look at that if that were to change, or if there was means to do so. Hope that answers the question.
Councillor Slade, I believe you indicated to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. I'd just like to start off with thanking Mr Aldridge for his consideration with the member report. I'm sure members are going to find this particularly helpful. So it's just a few questions. So just from obviously the conversation with Councillor Barber, is my understanding that the inspection time frame will be based on individual trees, or will there be a set inspection time? How long before the audit is complete? If you reported that there's 3,591 surveys, is that out of the borough's 28,000 trees, if I've been informed correctly? And with regards to sending out to contractors, are we using all local Brentwood-based contractors, or have we expanded the field of our contractors to those outside the borough?
Thank you. So, can you just repeat that the first part of your question again, please, Councillor Slade?
It's to do with the inspection timeframe. Is it going to be based on individual trees, or is there going to be a set inspection timeframe, or is it going to be a combination of the two?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. So the tree policy does indicate the set routine. So that's a generic example, if you like. But the actual individual assessment of the tree would override that within the tree policy if there was a hazard or a risk associated with that tree. It's difficult to put a number to those trees because of all the trees within the borough and how you inspect trees. We have some very large, beautiful woodlands in Brentwood, but it would not be reasonably practicable to inspect every tree within one of those. So it's hard to put a true number on all those trees. But we would inspect larger areas as groups and only assess those that propose or could potentially pose a hazard, if that makes sense. And then, sorry, your final question. How long will it take? Oh, how long will it take? Sorry. I would say we're probably about 60% through at the moment. The works have been prioritised by the QTRA report, which was brought in around this time last year, maybe a bit later to this committee. So we're working through those. It's hard to put a timescale on it, tree by tree basis, but I'm hoping we will be completed this financial year.
Regarding sending to contractors, are we only using local contractors, or have we expanded the putting out to contractors outside of the borough?
Thank you. So both. So the contractors were procured using the council's framework and under the contract procedure rules. So there is both.
Okay, Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, great, thank you. In 2013, the Council's insurer highlighted a number of concerns around tree management at Brentwood Council, highlighting the Council's tree management, risk management of trees, tree management operations, budget control and proactive inspections. All records were inadequate and not meeting the expectations of the insurer. A report 10 years later highlighted similar concerns and outlined a number of risks. Would officers agree that we are now making progress more so than we ever have done in the past?
Yes, I mean, it's precisely what this was brought in to address.
I don't think I can't see any more questions. Mr. Councillor.
Thank you. Chair, I totally understand the sentiment that Councillor Barber raised his question, and I personally used to do that as a kid in Doddinghouse growing up. It was the thing to do. But I'm concerned regarding insurance and our legal position. Should we be inspecting a tree and saying it's okay or it's not in any risk and allowing the recreational pursuit to continue? Are we then putting ourselves forward to saying it's okay to do it? That's my only fear on that. We know what insurers are like, and we know what risk management's all about. So I'll just put that out there. But if we do inspect the trees, and I understand fully the reason for doing it, are we open up a can of worms?
That's a good question. My understanding, Mr. Aldridge's answer, perhaps you can clarify, is that you weren't saying we would condone what goes on the tree, but that we would have to record and acknowledge that the trees were being used, or some might say abused in that way. But Mr. Aldridge, would you like to expand on your answer?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Exactly as you say. So we would not encourage the use in that way, and we would certainly look to, if we did find it, we would look to prevent that future use. However, if there's an understanding of what that tree is being used for, then we'll be seen to manage the risk in that way. So it may mean further inspections. We would certainly be putting in measures to stop or prohibit the trees from being used in that way, and we also take any tree swings down or anything dangerous that we find while we're on site.
Thank you very much. Anyone else got any comments or questions? Did you want to come back, Councillor
Yeah,
Barber?
if you don't mind, I was named specifically, and I'm sure there wasn't any intention to misrepresent my views. My point simply is that if you are only inspecting a tree every 5 years, and you know there is a tendency for local people to do that, having a less frequent inspection means that you won't be able to discover and be able to remove those ropes and those play equipment that may be erected around it than if you do. Obviously I don't approve of anyone doing that, but what I was shocked about was the fact that such a very large mature oak tree completely collapsed and was described to me as the one that the kids swing on. And that really worried me, and I do think that we do need to inspect those more frequently to make sure that we can actually make sure that that activity doesn't happen, because no one is looking up about whether the tree is going to have a branch collapse or not. They're just putting the rope up. And I can see it on social media when they're saying that they put the rope back up, and you're having to kind of escalate those things to council officers. But no, I certainly don't condone it. I'm sorry that you did it when you were a child. But I'm just asking that the council has a proper risk-based assessment of the tree and how it might be used in the real world to try and deter an accident. Thank you.
So, Mr. Aldridge, can you just reassure us that you've talked about having this risk-based approach, that where there are trees that are being abused in this way, that the risk-based approach will trigger a response that matches the expectations of Councillor Barber, which I think are perfectly reasonable, that we need to go and look at it more frequently. Yes. Whether you get to the stage of escalating it to antisocial behaviour is another issue. I think we have to be careful about how we treat young people, children who just want to play outdoors and are not fully conversant with the risks they might be running. I think sort of trying to stick labels on them around antisocial behaviour probably wouldn't be the right route to go, except in extreme circumstances. But the key point is, would our risk assessment have triggers that say these trees need a lot more attention, care, and we need to revisit them? Can we just have that reassurance?
Yes, I can give you that reassurance. So the QTRA would pick that up, and we'll take a proportionate action to the level of risk.
Right, I think we've been through the report quite comprehensively, and I think I would hope that we'll see regular snapshots from this report at our tree management working group, and we'll get a chance to drill down in some of the detail and the actions that need to be taken and are being taken. I think one thing that's really welcome, and I think we should all take on board, is that it was a very professional presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Aldridge, and it contained a lot of detail. It was very transparent, very open and very honest, and I think that's something that we should all welcome, something we can embrace and take forward. So thank you very much. Right. The next item, item 6, the infrastructure action plan update. begins on page 15 of the agenda. Mr. Ellis, do you have anything to add at this stage?
No, thank you, Chair.
Right, I will move the recommendations, which is to note the actions taken under the Infrastructure Action Plan. Do I have a seconder?
You absolutely do. I'll second it.
Have more than one second. I'll put Councillor Naylor down for this one. Can I thank the officers very much for this report. It's very accessible, it's very comprehensive, and it does, I think for the first time, give us a really clear sense that we know what bins we've got, where they are, where the problems are, and how we're dealing with those, and inevitably how much it will cost to deal with those problems. You know, larger bins, replacing bins, particularly the bins in the open spaces and the parks, which were of an old design, many of which are falling apart and clearly do need to be replaced. And that replacement programme is already underway, is ongoing, and I know from what I see coming through the members' portal that the response to obvious problems with frequency of collections, size of bins, it is being picked up, and we are addressing those. Will we crack every problem? Bins overflow. I walk through the City of London very often, as I'm sure one or two other members here do. I mean, the City of London is the wealthiest local authority in the country, and I walk past overflowing bins. It happens. You're not going to stop it. The question is, have we got systems in place to make sure that where it happens frequently, that we're on top of it, and can we respond when there are serious problems? Some of the problems, and it's addressed in the report, are fly tipping. And I think members have got examples of the stickers that we're going to be putting on the bins that are abused in that way. And I think if you look at section 1.8 of the report under enforcement, it does indicate that where we know there are problems, we are taking action, and that penalty notices which attach quite large fines to them will be issued where we can identify the culprits. So that said, I'm happy to hand over to other members. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to say thank you to you and the officers for responding promptly to requests to upgrade bins in terms of size, outside long ride-ins, outside Raleigh Road, to provide new bins in Fulters Close, and also, I believe, for Councillor Gordon, outside Shenfield Library. And I applaud you for doing that. So thank you very much. One thing I would say is, at the moment, we have litter bins certainly in our ward which do overflow and are being abused, and there are no such stickers on there yet. So I won't be too pedantic about the fact it says are also applied to litter bins which are being abused, because I don't believe that's the case today. The only thing I would say about this leaflet, which is welcomed, is it doesn't say what the fine is. And I really do think if you're going to try and deter and change a bit of behaviour, please, before you put these on the litter bins which are affected, and I will certainly send you after this meeting a list of the ones that are, can we have the fine on there to try and act as a deterrent against that behaviour? It's extremely antisocial, but I applaud you for doing the notices on the litter bin, and I look forward to you putting them up across Hutton North. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that question about sticking, adding the fines to the stickers?
I think it's a very good idea. We can arrange to get that done.
And presumably that would, Mr. Ellis, that would say fines up to whatever the cap is.
Yeah, I will speak to colleagues in the enforcement team and make sure we're precise with what we're saying.
Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Follow up to Councillor Barber's comment. It was upsetting me seeing the new Shenfield Library and park benches there and litter slowly piling up. So the response to our request to have it bin put there, could I just pass my thanks on to the officers for actually arranging that, and the place is looking much tidier now. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to know these systems that we put in place work. So that's great, and thank you for thanking the officers publicly.
You and I were having a coffee opposite.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we saw it being installed. Yeah, so we knew it was happening and it was for real. Yeah. I think I saw Councillor Slade indicate. Oh no, I'll take Councillor Gordon first, as he's a member of the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for Mr. Ellis. So, in Appendix 1, page 22 of the agenda pack, on the second item down on page 22, explore the feasibility of introducing wheeled bins in housings at selected locations. I presume that means in housing developments, blocks of flats, etc., that there's a proposal to introduce litter bins as opposed to household waste bins, which are wheelie bins. Is that correct?
What we was looking at is, and this is used in other authorities and on the A127, so you have wheeled bins that you could use for residual waste collection services or waste collection services, but use those as litter bins. You'd take the lid off the wheeled bin and it would be in a nice enclosure to smarten things up and give it additional capacity.
So would it be very clear that they are litter bins and not household waste bins?
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Slade. Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 points. In February, I raised at the February Clean and Green that there was no bin located on the Brentwood High Street from all the way from Dr. Gadget to Marks and Spencer's. So under on Appendix 1, the litter bin provision operational, could we just look into the fact that obviously there's no bin provision on a substantial stretch of the High Street? And also just to raise that I see no reference in here to the gum bins, which both myself and Councillor Naylor have raised at several committees since, I think, December last year. And at the February committee, it was said that you would be looking into the provision of the gum bins, just to see if there's an update for myself and Councillor Naylor on that matter.
Yes, so the gum bins, we were bidding, economic development actually led the bid for the chewing gum task force funding, which we were successful with last year. The bid was unsuccessful this year, so that closed down one avenue we was going to be exploring in terms of funding those bids.
Thank you very much. Councillor Naylor, I think you wanted to speak, yes?
Yes, please, thank you. Great, thank you. The issue around litter and litter bins is something that I definitely raised under the Conservative administration, and we had some reporting instances in across the borough of bins overflowing. I think whilst it does indeed still happen under the joint administration, I definitely believe it's we've definitely improved on the situation, and we have a well set out plan here, which we never had under the Conservative administration either before. I'm not against, by the way, putting the fines on the sticker. I think it's a good idea. The only concern I have is that fines increase over time, and then I don't know whether maybe we only purchase a limited amount of these or something. The other thing is a note on Appendix 1 that on IT, you've got to simplify the platform for residents to report litter and overflow litter bins and monitor the number of complaints and the reports. There's no update on that. I'm wondering, as an idea, whether we could put some QR codes on the litter bins, so when litter bins are overflowing, residents can get out their mobile phones, point their cameras at it, and the QR code immediately takes them to the website for them to report the overflowing bin. That would be something I would really like to see implemented. Actually, if I'll pass it over to officers, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you. I think we've set ourselves a date for January 2026 to start to look at progressing that action. But of course we can incorporate your comments and work with IT College to see what's possible.
I think it might be useful, Mr. Ellis, if we added to the actions investigating funding for gun bins or more another blitz on the high streets to clear the gun. I think that would address Councillor Slade's point. I think it would be quite useful to keep that on the agenda. Right. No more comments, questions? Thank you very much, members. Very helpful, constructive debate. Can I just, we do have a recommendation, which is to note the actions that have been taken. Can I see those in favour, please? Fly tipping action plan. Fly tipping is a subset of what we've just been talking about in some ways, but obviously is a more pressing, urgent, annoying, infuriating problem that successive administrations have been tackling. It begins on page 25 of the agenda. Mr. Ellis, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you, Chair.
So you have a recommendation which is to note the progress that's been made and agree for a further update in approximately 6 months' time. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay. Do I have any questions, comments, observations from members? I'm not sure who was first. Go on, you go first this time. That's Gibson, thank you.
So the question's in around targeted enforcement and CCTV cameras being put up. In Hutton East, we have issues on Church Lane and the surrounding areas, roads. What can be done to put cameras up on that location?
So we are working with the enforcement team to get some more cameras. We understand there is a budget available to do so, so we've asked that they consider purchasing a number of the wildlife type cameras. I think that this is one of the areas we'll select, but it can be a challenge to get the quality of sort of information you require from those, but I think they're certainly worth a try, and certainly we take on board. This is one of the hot spots we're aware of, and we are keen to, with the enforcement team, to put those in place, but I'll hopefully get an update from the next couple of weeks. So they're assuring me that they're placing those on order, and then we'll also see them putting it out, so we're working closely with the enforcement team.
And I think I saw Councillor Gordon next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a really question for the officers. Do you expect an increase in fly tipping as a result of moving to a 2-weekly bin collection? I was just thinking, you know, that we have this here. This is obviously household waste which has been dumped, and if people are going to be limited to, I think it was 180 litre bins. So I fear there could be an increase in fly tipping as a result of this move. Are you going to monitor the numbers? Thank you.
Mr. Holton, I think we have some answers to that question. It's been frequently asked.
I mean, certainly we'll be monitoring the numbers. We are assured that some national, obviously we're behind the curve in many ways. This is something that many authorities have already done, that there is not an increase in fly tipping. I do understand the logic that you apply. I think I can anecdotally remember when Chelmsford went over to the system. I used to work in country parks then, and I was convinced that I was going to see an upturn in fly tipping in the car parks around the country park. I remember there being a slight upturn and then it settled. And I think if I was asking an honest answer, I think you may see a slight upturn and then it settles back down to the same levels again. That's my personal view. I don't have the data-led view of that, but certainly my anecdotal experience over the years is probably that would be, I think, the reality of what you'd expect.
Thank you. So what you're saying is you don't expect to see a significant steady increase. So it will be interesting to see the data in a few months' time. Thank you.
Indeed. Councillor Barber.
Thank you. It's the question about the number of prosecutions. In comparison to our peers and neighbouring councils, Given that we have, 82 investigations, 42, quite large numbers, why have we only had one successful prosecution since April?
The bar is always set that much higher in terms of going to court and putting the evidence together. I mean, I can perhaps we can invite along the Director of Communities perhaps to give a bit more detail myself on this matter, but it is always quite a high bar to successfully prosecute, and the evidence that's required, it can be quite time consuming.
Yeah, go on.
So on that basis, I would assume that if you can roll out quickly the video bird cameras that you're talking about, that would give you the evidence that would lead to an uptick in prosecutions, correct?
Possibly, and I'd be slightly cautious in that, one of the challenges with all the footage is that it's the professional fly tippers are the ones that are hardest to catch. And so therefore, in many ways, what you'll do is you'll capture false number plates or number plates of cloned vehicles. That's not to say we shouldn't try to do so. I think it is important that we do get these cameras out.
Any more comments or questions? Councillor Aspin.
Thank you, Chair. From where we sit today to where we were 2.5 years ago, when I sat in your seat, it's the difference between chalk and cheese, black and white, whatever. It's a phenomenal increase in clearing up fly tips. That when we took over here, the amount of time that was between being reported and being cleared up was incredible. Now we're down to what you're telling me in these papers was 5 days. Now 3. That is phenomenal. Mr. Houghton and I attended a public meeting in Lowestoft, which I'll never forget, where the residents there were quite rightly outraged at what they was having to put up with, and the amount of fly tipping that was going on, unrestricted, and a terrible record of clearing up. That is now reversed, and in a short answer to the prosecutions is we're still waiting for several of them to go to court. One particular case looks like it's responsible for 25% of all the organised fly tips in Brentwood, in the borough. One particular person. Another one, and I have to pay immense credit and praise to our officers who have been investigating and following through on prosecutions and the enforcement side. And quite rightly, that praise is fulsome and well pointed, because going into people's discarded rubbish and picking up evidence that they might find, then taking that to the next level to trace down the road all those pieces of evidence they've put together is time consuming, and it takes diligence and it takes dogged determination. And that has happened in several areas where people have had their collars felt or their shoulders tapped on that they're responsible. Now, this never happened before. It's happening now on a large scale. And the wildlife cameras, I believe, are a breakthrough. They're not a static thing that people can easily, readily see and remove and damage. They are something that's working quite well. And thanks particularly to our officers here who, if we're around travelling through the borough and we see a fly tip and we can't contact them, it's addressed immediately, which is a phenomenal response, something that, as I carry on, never happened before. Thank you very much to everyone that's involved, and well done, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right. Just want to reiterate that the last point there, the thanks to the officers. when we introduced the target of clearing them up in 5 working days, we thought that that was quite ambitious. I think it was a suggestion of the scrutiny committee that we might be even more ambitious and go for 3 working days. And I know from conversations I had with the officers at that time that they were a little bit nervous about a more ambitious target. We're damn near hitting it, 90% within 3 days, or 83% in the first quarter. It's, given where we were, it's very impressive. And I think please pass on our thanks to the teams on the ground who have to do the dirty work of clearing up this mess, because we are grateful. It makes our borough a better place, a place that we can be more proud of because of the response that they make to when we find, and some of them are awful, aren't they? They're absolutely terrible. We're grateful for everything that they've done, and love to see the day when we can turn around and say we've hit 90% in 3 days. I don't think we'll tighten the target after that, though. I think we'll say that's good enough. Thank you very much. But we're damn nearly there, and thanks to everyone who's got us that far. So, having said that, we have a recommendation to note the actions taken. Can I see those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, so we move on to item 8, which is on page 35. This is an update on the Urban Tree Challenge Fund planting scheme. Mr Aldridge, do you want to add anything at this stage?
Thank you, Chair. No, nothing further to add.
Well, we have some recommendations, which is to approve a further 119 trees to be planted. And thank you very much. We have a complete list. And for the committee to note the requirement for officers to formally record all present and future tree planting and to ensure provision to maintain the trees is secured at the time of planting. And I think we can all see the relevance of those recommendations. I'm going to move those. Can I have a seconder?
Yep, I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I see any comments, questions? Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly on page 36, 1.1, 119 trees have failed. Do we know how they died? Was it lack of watering or strimmer damage, or what caused it? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it was lack of watering.
Right, anyone else? Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. Just some points and some questions. So with regards to the planting of the 119 trees, where will they be? Will that be open to a tender to the members to suggest locations? And then I'd just like to add some context again to this report. So, for instance, point 1.8 seems to conflate the UTCF and also the Brentwood plan. So that 353 trees. As point 1.4 states, that was 167 trees from the UTCF, with the remaining being part of the Brentwood planting plan. Those trees were slightly smaller in stature and were put in individual areas such as Kimpton Avenue, where it was a very successful plan where the residents took responsibility for the watering and maintenance, and the survival rate there was 100%. Touching on Councillor Gordon's point about the 119 that have failed, again, this comes back to the stop order of April 24, when, as a result of that, watering was stopped. So, again, that's the actual significant factor as to why those trees failed. With point 1.13, it says a poor initial choice of site. Can we have an explanation as to why? Again, 1.14, due to the lack of sufficient watering, I do think we should be specifying that that's a result of the stop order in April 24, and just to acknowledge that the scheme that was put in place, where the resident groups were £25 tree, per tree to water, that's successful because obviously the survival rate there is 100%. And then moving on to page 38 with the financial implications. With regards to the water bags, it's obviously in late autumn and winter, the the trees need very little water. So therefore then, and I've obviously from the research, including research that I found from Kew Gardens, if the water bags are left on the tree, they become a hibernation habitat where small mammals and rodents nibble the bark and effectively help to debilitate or kill the tree. Therefore, have we arranged an autumn schedule to remove those water bags and then likewise arranged a spring schedule to replace the water bags?
Okay, quite a few detailed questions. So if the officers want to pick them up, would imagine one or two you might want to answer offline, but those you can answer now would be very helpful.
I think the key point to make is, and perhaps that was the usefulness of having that demonstration of the software. Well, I think there has been, admittedly, on my part, failings previously on actually formally recording where trees were. So it is hard to water trees when it's hard to have records that are easy to access, in all honesty. And I think so. Much of this report about concentrating on what will we do in the future differently. I think that sets out that very clearly, that here's the number of trees. The 119 trees we put on the list are to meet those that we originally promised to members. I think there's, the schemes seem to have subsumed into two with some confusion. And so some of them are the urban tree sort of forestry sort of planting, and some are an additional scheme that I think was promised to members that we want to ensure that we honour. And so that's really capturing that. That wasn't formally put down on paper to the committee previously. So what we're wanting to do really is mop up, I guess, in retrospect, those trees that we've kind of promised to members that we want to ensure we deliver. So that is that list. But I think it is, and really it is a document that sets out the lessons learned. What we will do in the future is all these trees we mapped on Ease Retrieve. We'll be able to water them on a regular basis, and we'll be able to put in, as you say, schedules such as removing the bags in the autumn and replace them in the spring. But I think it just needed that structure to it. Unfortunately, we've relied perhaps on pen and paper in the past, and there's a change in sort of a management style, if you wish, then things do fall between the gaps, and we accept that. And this is the idea, is to address all that and move forward. Thank you.
Just make it quick, yes?
So obviously, in that previous scheme last year, I suggested a number of sites for trees. So have you still got a list of when the members, obviously some recommended sites, so do we need to do that again?
Thank you, Councillor. So there's a list appended to this report of those trees that have already been promised to councillors. Just within the report, we do say we can look at it on a case-by-case basis, so we're happy to take further recommendation from members.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fortune.
Is it possible just to join in the praise of Councillor Slade's compliments to the residents of Kempton Avenue? They've been incredibly proactive in looking after the trees on their road. They were the ones that brought the petition to this council to ensure that their street trees were replanted. Further to that, they've made their street a street of architectural significance, thanks to Officer McAllister. So, thank you, Councillor Slade, for bringing that up.
Councillor Barber, I think you indicated.
Yeah, please, Chair. Thank you very much. Again, I'd like to echo the comments thanking the officers for their hard work on this issue. The trees do look fantastic when they thrive, and obviously there's always going to be some failures, let's be fair. The hydration bags are much to be welcome. I also do think they act to deter strimmer damage, which we were certainly getting on the Long Ridings estate a year or so ago, where trees were zealously trimmed during the grass cutting, and that was a problem. And I do think that sticks and mesh around trees helps encourage survival rates, particularly on estates that suffer from a degree of antisocial behaviour. One thing I would, well, there's two questions I'd ask really, please. One is, if there is a very exceptionally hot summer, can the budget for any extra watering that's required be automatically delegated to the responsible officer? Because my understanding from past discussions with people was that there was delays in getting some of the watering approved financially. And the other thing is, in terms of, we have a lot of residents who don't always like trees being planted near their homes. And I understand that, but part of the special character of Brentwood Borough is that you can go down, you drive down, see the cherry trees down, Kilworth and Shenfield Park and around there, and it makes it look very pleasant. It also encourages the area to be cooler, and I do think that we mustn't revert to just sticking all of the trees into the parks and the large green spaces, because if we do that, we will lose and change over time to the detriment of our borough, some of the residential roads. And can I ask, please, just plant the tree that's appropriate size-wise, and one with not cherries that fall down necessarily on the footpath and make it slippery. But please keep residential streets green as well as the parks. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want to come back on that, Mr. Hodden?
So I think we intend to put sufficient budget aside in reserve to deal with these matters. And so the idea is to ensure that when contracts of planting are awarded, that the watering is part of that contract as well. So you're not having that problem of obtaining quotes, drawing down. That it is a whole package, so we can ensure the care is there.
I do think part of that is what's already been made reference to, which is trying to work with the local community, where the trees are planted in a place that it makes them accessible to local residents to water. We mentioned one scheme. The other one was Chelmsford Road, where the Chelmsford Road Area Residents Association took responsibility for the trees planted down there, one of which is outside my house. I can tell you, I couldn't bear the thought of that failing. I have watered that slavishly over the last 18 months, and it's still flourishing. So long may that continue. But it does show what can happen if you work with the community. People want trees, and they're prepared to make an effort to nurture them and to look after them. So I would urge that we look at how we do that we communicate with residents when we are embarking on planting, and try and engage them in caring for those trees. Thank you very much. I can't see any other contributions, so can I see those in favour of the recommendations on page 35? Those in favour, please.
That's unanimous, Chair.
And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, we move on to the place-based replacement programmes on page 45. And we've slightly tweaked the recommendations here to acknowledge that we need to involve the Housing and Communities Committee in some of these decisions. So I think the easiest thing to do is if I read out recommendations 1, 4 and 5 have slightly changed. So if I read those out, and people hopefully will be able to make a note. So recommendation 1 is now to note the draft play space replacement programme as set out at Appendix A to this report, and to recommend approval to the Housing, Health and Communities Committee on the 15th of December 2025. Recommendations 2 and 3 remain the same. Number 4 becomes that authority be delegated to the Director of Environment in consultation with the Chair of Clean and Green and Chair of Housing, Health and Community Committee to seek and secure appropriate match funding to assist in the delivery of the play spaces replacement programme. And recommendation 5 now becomes to present to future Clean and Green and Housing, Health and Communities Committees an outline proposal and the resources required to deliver a place strategy for the borough. So those are the amended recommendations. Mr Aldridge, do you want to add anything to the report at this stage?
Thank you, Chair. No, nothing further to add. Thank you.
In that case, I will move those amended recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
I would be delighted to second these. Thank you.
Yes. Right, who would like to kick off? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of things. Can I just point out that on your capital expenditure Appendix 1, that Year 4 should be 28-29 and Year 5 should be 29-30. It has the incorrect calendar year in the report. That's the first thing to note. And what I wanted to do was just speak about the mugger, as it's called in Hutton Recreation Grounds, the report is quite damning of the condition of that play equipment, and it is actually described as being quite urgent. However, despite the degree of urgency in the report, the capital funds are only saying that there will be 10,000 allocated in year 2, and with the lion's share being allocated in year 5. So if it really is as seriously dangerous and requiring attention to the point where you might actually have to close it down, why in the capital schedule are the Hutton residents having to wait until 29:30 for the proper fix to that equipment in the Hutton Recreation Grounds? Because it seems to me that the scheduling of this does not reflect the degree of urgency that your report is saying relates to that equipment. Because £10,000 in 26-27, you know, it's almost coming to the time where Brentwood's going to disappear. So anything that's in there for a capital spend in 29-30 could always be reworked. And yet you're telling us you may have to cease allowing people to use the equipment. So that's a real problem for me voting for this at the moment, because it doesn't seem to reflect what the report says.
Mr. Aldridge.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question. It's a good question. So I think it's so the recommended budget within the capital programme will look to address those outstanding issues. I think it's important to remember that something that does not comply with a British standard does not necessarily mean it's unsafe, but we should be looking to prioritise that at some point within the future. So the budget allocated will repair those immediate hazards, and it's not saying that the multi-use games area cannot be used in the future, but within priority of this programme, that's where the budget has been prioritised. What I do hope before that, subject to approval of this committee and looking into a place-based strategy for the borough, that would provide a better understanding and knowledge of the facilities required for play, including multi-use games area for the borough. So we should have a better understanding at that point of the capital investment needed for future provision. This just sets out what is needed immediately to keep that open.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Could I just come back to Mr. Aldridge? Sorry, apologies. But it doesn't know. It's actually in year 2. It's April or May 26 to actually address safety issues and concerns which exist today. That is not acceptable for a council to say, because if there are safety issues, they do need to be addressed immediately in the current calendar year.
Mr. Aldridge, want to pick that up? Or?
Thank you. Yes, I'll take your point. So the recommendations have come from the annual inspection. So at the time of the inspection, they marked those as a low risk, but something to note. So we're aware there's a risk. It's a low risk, but it is a risk that we do need to manage. We are undertaking the next round of annual inspections within the next 2 months, so we'll have a better understanding then. But being a low risk, we see that is the right priority to give the repairs.
Councillor Gordon.
Thank you very much, Chair. Continue along with sort of Councillor Barber's comments. I've probably got sort of slight conflict of interest here, having 2 granddaughters at St Mary's School. So under sort of 1.33 Courage Playing Field, it's exactly the sort of same wording. The junior area within the next 2 years may be forced to close, and then it goes on to talk about replacement of the area is recommended to conform with BS standards. So again, is there an issue? Could it fall out of the budget, and then suddenly we find that's the only play area in the area for older children could suddenly get closed? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I understand your concern. So it does highlight that there is maintenance issues at the site. Doesn't necessarily mean it is unsafe now, and we will continue to inspect those with the team. And if it did come to a point where it was unsafe, then of course we would act immediately to take that out of action. What this is highlighting is that due to the age and current condition, the likelihood of those areas needing works are sooner rather than later.
Councillor Fulcher.
Yeah, it was just to say, to sort of inform the discussion that our leisure strategy did not really give a long-term plan for these play areas. So I think Officer Adam is giving a way forward, and that is a strategy, a dedicated play area strategy. And I think as a committee to get behind that, it is going to be the strongest position to be in terms of future budget.
Councillor Naylor.
Great. Councillor Fulcher is bang on in that we've had parks here have not been looked at for not just years, decades. Literally, I'll put you, Cromwell Road is more than 30 years old. Some of the equipment hasn't worked in there for years and it's been taped off for years. So I'm delighted after many years of campaigning, it's here. It's finally highlighted and there's a plan for it, along with many of the other parks, not just in my own ward, but also, for example, North Road Play Space in, was Brentwood North now, Brentwood South, I believe. Really well done on this, and I look forward to having these play areas which are used by children to be updated. One thing I would like to ask is that play areas are no longer just for children. They have been space has been given over to adults, and also not just adults, children use the fitness equipment as well. I'd like to see some more fitness areas put into the plan for some of these parks.
Thank you very much. I'm sure, Councillor Naylor, we can take that on board as we develop the play strategy overall. I think that's a very good point, and that's an obvious place to put it. Mr. Holton, do you want to comment on any of the issues around the prioritising of some of the work that I do have some sympathy with the councillors who picked up from the report that there are safety issues and there's a degree of urgency, and that's not reflected necessarily in the way the capital programme is structured.
To be clear, so we're guided by the ROSPA inspections taken annually. In many ways, it's possibly the language they use. Perhaps we're perhaps a bit more accustomed to that than yourselves. So a low risk isn't necessarily something that needs action necessarily straight away, but as I said, they are highlighting it's something to consider for the future. So in many ways, this is an estimated capital requirement. That means it could have to be alive to circumstances that change over that year. So we do undertake weekly inspections, quarterly inspections, and an annual inspection. So in many ways, if there were any risks in that play area, then we'd have to take action earlier. But what I'm trying to do is, I guess, assist our finance team as much as anyone else as well, is about forecasting the amount of capital we think we roughly need going forward to address some of these issues.
Councillor Barr.
Sorry, I just point out that in Council's own report tonight, it says requires immediate attention. I mean, reports they're either that's not the case and it shouldn't be in the report and it should have been reworded. But if it is worded in that way, then personally I will be abstaining on this. And please, can I request a recorded vote on the item? Thank you. I think I have a seconder from one of the.
So I take note of what your wording is. So from our point of view, that means that we're seeking quotes to take action on that as quick as we can. Immediate would be closure, but it doesn't require closure. It requires that some work is done, and that is what we are undertaking. So I appreciate that you've got it for next April, but in terms of actually awarding the contract, getting the works done, I suspect it won't be before then anyway.
Councillor Aspinall.
Yes, I'd like it qualified in actually what we're talking about here. Are we saying that there are potential risks to pieces of equipment that needs urgent attention, or the whole play area needs closing? Got to be careful of what we're saying, and what we're implying within this. If there is equipment that needs to be replaced, then we will have to close that particular piece of equipment and purchase a new one if we believe it's part of our strategy. So I'm not sure why we should be being frightened about this or overcautious, because if we've not had a strategy before and we're putting one in place, this is what it will throw up. If we're going to have an inspection regime, we need to do it properly, and it needs to be. We need to be extremely careful over children's play equipment. And if it does need financing, my friend Councillor Kendall will be only too pleased to hear that we're requesting further capital finances so that this play equipment can be safely used by our younger residents. So I just want to be clarified what we're actually talking about.
Very much. Right, any more contributions? I think it's important that I understand that some of the sort of abbreviated language to summarise complex reports from ROSPA has alarmed people, understandably. But I think you've got to understand what we're trying to do tonight is to put down a plan for taking us forward in terms of how we look after our play areas. We didn't have a comprehensive plan. There wasn't a document that said, this is what we've got, this is what is fit for purpose, what is not fit for purpose, what is reaching end of life. We have that now, and that is invaluable, and that is a foundation for going forward. Now, this is a two-stage process for this part of the work, because this now has to go on to the Housing and Communities Committee, and the recommendation says to note the draft play space replacement programme and to recommend that its approval to the Housing, Health and Communities Committee. It is a draft. We can, I would suggest, have a look at how it is drafted, what is prioritised between now and when it goes to the Housing Committee. I don't think we're committed to sending the precise words, if I read the recommendations correctly. So yeah, I would urge members to support this because it is an invaluable step forward. It is a foundation for managing our play areas proactively and safely in the future. So that said, I'll put the recommendations to the vote. I know there's been a request for a recorded vote. This is why I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Please can members indicate for, against or abstain when their name is called. Councillor Worsfold.
For.
Councillor Gorton. For. Councillor Barber.
Abstain.
Councillor Aspinall.
For.
Councillor Fulcher. For. Councillor Gibson.
Abstain.
Councillor Patel.
Abstain.
Councillor Gordon.
Abstain.
And Councillor Naylor.
For.
Thank you, members. That's carried, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as I said, this is a report that will see the light of day again fairly shortly, so we can revisit many of those issues. Right, moving on to item 10, contribution to community-led energy project. Report begins on page 3 of the supplementary agenda, unfortunately, Mr Massey isn't able to join us this evening, but Ms Gordon, do you want to add anything at this stage?
Thank you. No, nothing further to add at this stage. Thank you.
Right. We do have with us this evening Councillor Paul Jeter, who is the Chair of the Ingatestone and Freining Parish Council, who have been instrumental in getting this project off the ground, and I'm going to ask him just to say a few words to put it in context and about the background and where we are today.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate members allowing me to address you this evening. I don't know how well you know Seymour Field and its pavilion in Ingatestone. I guess you should, because technically Brentwood Borough Council own the site, so you should know it. Recently, we've been in negotiations with you and have extended the lease to guarantee that it remains a playing field and green space till 2068, which basically guarantees it for the next 2 generations of young people and residents of our parish. Over the years, we've improved both the playing fields there and the pavilion, working in conjunction with the Football Foundation and with the FA, who helped us improve quality of football pitches. We've invested in the pavilion so that it's become a real community asset to the parish. However, there's more work to be done. And one of the ideas that our parish council had was to install solar panels on the roof. We think this has got a good business case, and obviously it's also got a good environmental case. We went out to a number of companies and evaluated what they proposed. Our preferred option is in the paperwork that you've got in front of you, and for us, it economically makes sense in as far as we invest and it will pay for itself within 6 years, our projections. But we then came to the conclusion that what we were preparing to do for our parish asset could also have relevance to our residents as well. Most of the public buildings in the borough will have the capacity to generate more power than they will actually use on their everyday usage. So we've had meetings with Essex County Council's community energy officers, and we've come up with a scheme. We've got a public meeting. I was going to say next month. We're not quite in October yet. It is next month. To talk to local residents about the whole possibility of community energy. And we feel that this could be a pilot scheme for the whole borough. Some other parts of Essex I know have pushed ahead with this. If we're successful in Ingatestone, then there's no reason that that can't act as a catalyst for elsewhere within Brentwood. And obviously, you know, someone who believes in the project, I hope that's the case. I think for residents, you have to make the business case or the financial case as well as the environmental case. If I thought I could simply sell it to the people of Ingatestone based on it's good for the planet, I'd get some support, but I wouldn't carry everybody with me. But at a time when interest rates are falling, actually investing in solar energy for your household makes good economic sense as well. And I'm delighted to have been able to talk to people in Brentwood and your officers as well as councillors to put forward the case. And I think this is a fantastic partnership opportunity between you as the owners of the land, us as the lessees, you know, taking this forward. And I hope from, if you like, from this small acorn, we can grow much wider. I plan to go out and try and sell it, for instance, to our local schools. I don't really have to do that Anglo-European school, because obviously it's going to be a rebuild and it will be energy efficient anyway. But some of the other schools and some of the other public buildings, I've even had retail units in Ingatestone High Street come to talk to me about, would this be possible for us? You know, local supermarkets, big users of energy, lots of refrigeration. This has got real potential. So thank you very much. I hope you support the proposal, frankly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move the recommendation that is on page 3 of the report. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, happy to second.
Does anyone want to speak on this? Let's go to Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Chair. page 41 of the agenda pack summarises the environmental benefits of this scheme very well. It could save 2 tonnes of CO2 emissions a year, which is equivalent to over 7,000 miles of a car journey, or equivalent to the CO2 absorbed by 92 trees. So this fits in very well with our targets to reduce, for borough assets, are reduced to 0 our net carbon emissions for borough assets by 2030, and our further target of reducing carbon emissions to net 0 for the whole borough by 2040. I think it's a win-win. It's a win for the environment. It's a win for residents. So I fully back this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aspinall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Jeter for all the work he's doing in Ingaystone on this and many other environmental issues and projects that they're taking up. It is an excellent idea. It's one we trying to roll out throughout our own stock, and one that I'm determined that we will have before I relinquish this seat. So well done, Ingaystone, and more power to your elbow.
Thank you very much. I just want to just add a few words. I do want to stress that the initiative for this came from the Parish Council. They took the initiative, had the conversation with the energy team at Essex County Council and started this process. But it's a great opportunity for us as a borough to come in partnership, because as Councillor Jeter explained, we can learn a lot from this. This has potential to grow in the way that was already described, but it also could lead in other directions. There are many examples up and down the country where these schemes have been turned into community enterprises, where residents can put their own, not just put their own electricity generated by their own solar panels into the scheme, but they can buy shares in a community enterprise. And the data's there. The average return for them is 5 to 6%. This is over and above what they would save from having their own solar panels. And it means you can then sell cheaper electricity to local residents. So that there are lots of other potential wins around this, which by being partners at this stage, getting in on the ground floor with this scheme is going to enable us to explore and be part of those conversations. It has a lot of potential. What we're not saying is this is the model we want. We want to have those conversations. As Councillor Jeter mentioned, there are other people coming forward. Some of the retailers in Ingatestone want to know how they can be part of this, and we need to have that conversation with them. It's got a lot of potential. It's got all the potential that Councillor Aspinall and Councillor Gorton talked about in terms of delivering environmental benefits, and obviously that very much fits with our strategy for the whole borough of addressing the climate emergency. So that's another big tick. It's got so much going for it. I do hope that all members can vote for this recommendation. Thank you. Did you indicate to speak there, Councillor Barber? Yes, sorry.
Can I ask one quick question? The other 50% presumably comes from Essex?
No, from the Parish
Council?
Council.
The parish?
Yes.
Okay, all right, well done to the Parish Council. I think this is a good initiative. My sister-in-law actually is part of a similar project up in Lancashire, where they generate energy from the local reservoir with a turbine at the bottom of the reservoir. So actually, I think these things are very good. It's a smart way to create energy in a cost-effective manner, and I'm really impressed with it. So well done. Yes, happy to support.
Well, in that case, I'll put this to the vote. Can I see those in favour of the recommendation? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Right, so item 11 is the Environment Strategy Review. This begins on page 25 of the supplementary agenda. Mr. Holton, do you have anything to add to this report?
I'm going to know that it's obviously looking backwards, so it's the previous year, so I think we're sort of quite a few months on from there, but so if you're reading and thinking, you know, this stuff we've already done, you're absolutely correct, but it is looking back over the last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll move the recommendation that we note the progress made against the environment strategy and to note the projects that are set out in paragraph 4.1, which is on page 30. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Anyone like to speak on this item? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep it fair and balanced. I'm going to abstain on this item because, as you know, I didn't support the Council's climate emergency declaration. And I do think with the fact that I think over the last week we've seen the Liberal Democrats scrapping their 2045 net zero target and aligning with 2050, it makes our own climate emergency declaration and ambitions totally unrealistic and unaffordable. I'm not going to rehash the national debate that's going on. Perhaps the Liberal Democrats are going to reconsider their position and move in due course locally to follow their national party. But there are many good things within the environment strategy which I do admire and I do respect. So that's why I won't vote against. But I'm going to abstain because fundamentally I believe the climate emergency policies of this council are unrealistic and unaffordable.
Any other contributions? Let's come back on that. I think, Councillor Barber, I think you're right. We don't want to replay national debates in our council chamber. And I think that the really important target for us is the ambition we set when we declared the climate emergency of net zero for the council by 2030. And we're on course for that. We've made massive strides in that direction. Yes, it was ambitious. It remains ambitious. But as you can see from this report, we have made enormous strides, and it does make 2030 still look achievable. And that's the target I would like us to focus on. Targets further away, well, I mean, they're going to be out of our hands with local government review anyway. But I would like to say that when we go into the new structure, that in what, 2.5 years' time, we can go into it having damn nearly met that 2030 target, because I believe we can do it, and I think it is affordable. I think everything that we've done is affordable, has been affordable, and is bringing obvious benefits, not to the health of our residents, to nature in the borough. However you look at it, what we have done has been beneficial and affordable, and we're going to keep doing it. We are going to go for that 2030 target because that's the big one as far as I'm concerned. So I would like to just give that endorsement to everything that's been done, to thank the officers who have worked so hard to deliver on many of these projects, and I look forward to working with them to deliver many more of them over the next 2.5 years. I can't see any more contribution. You want a recorded vote? Yep. Yeah. Does you have to have support for that? Yeah. Got a seconder for that? Oh, yeah. Ms. White, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Please can members indicate for, against or abstain when their name is called. Councillor Worsfold.
For.
Councillor Gorton. For. Councillor Barber.
Abstain.
Councillor Aspinall.
For.
Councillor Fulcher. For. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Patel. Councillor Gordon. And Councillor Naylor.
For.
Thank you, members. That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 12, which is the Q1 performance. This begins on page 69, back on the original agenda papers. Mr. Houghton, do you have anything to add?
Only this is obviously a very new initiative, so it's still a sort of work in progress. I think as officers we're still sort of getting to grips with this is a reporting system, so happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Before we move ahead on the recommendations, can I just have members' agreement to suspend standing orders so we can debate this item, as we only have 5 minutes left? Is that okay with everyone? Yep, thank you. Right, I'm going to move the recommendation, which is to receive and note the Q1 performance report. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, happy to second you.
And of course, as Mr. Houghton said, and as the report says, this is the first of what will be a regular item, and those of us who have been on other committees in this committee cycle will be familiar with this format, which is to enable us to scrutinise and to be very transparent about the progress we are making against the objectives that are set out in the Council's corporate plan. There's a lot of detail in that. If members have questions, then please pose them now or fire them at officers after the meeting offline. If there's that sort of nitty-gritty detail that is not likely to be to hand, but happy to take any questions at this stage. Right, I can't see any committee members indicating, so I'll take Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on, if I work backwards, page 76, tree planting. It says the duplicate of Pilgrim's Hatch tree planting, please remove. So it's just to ask, should that category be there, or does that need to be removed from the report? And then on page 74, undertake an internal audit of arboricultural service and complete the recommendation of auditors. Can I just have some more information just regarding the target of that audit, please?
A couple of questions there. Mr. Houghton, do you want to pick those up?
So yes, it's a duplicate project. I said this is where we're still finding our feet with, sometimes we describe as two different things and been picked up with different project officers and inserted twice. So this was the original audit that was undertaken by BDO. I mean, if you remember, this was taken to audit and scrutiny, recommendations put forward, and we picked up as a project, and we have closed, and BDO satisfies we've done the initial works. We're basically putting the place the sort of works we've done with Ease Retrieve now, rolling forward.
Okay. Councillor Barber.
Two quick ones, if I may, please. On the wildflower verges, you say here the trial was completed, a report is due to be sent back to the Clean and Green Committee. Can I ask which committee, in which month is that going to be?
So that'll be the next committee, so I think that's November, isn't it? End of November.
And the second final question is, you were doing trials of using alternatives to glyphosate for weed suppression in parks. I may have missed it, but I didn't see that anywhere in the pack. Is that not something that's meant to be coming back to this committee, or have I missed it?
Yes, that will be coming back as well. I said sometimes the projects we're still trying to get to grips with what's captured in here, but yes, that is intended to come back at the next Clean and Green Committee.
Any more questions? No? Well, thank you very much. As Mr. Houghton says, I think all the officers are feeling the way with the structure of these reports. So there will be things that need picking up. So thank you for spotting those one or two things which I think will be helpful going forward. We have the recommendation to, and no one else wants to speak. Can I see those in favour? Thank you very much, and I think that concludes the items of business for this evening. I'd like to close the meeting and thank everyone for their contributions for a very constructive meeting. Thank you very much indeed.